What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Ryan Pineda Show, where we talk all things money, real estate, and entrepreneurship. And in today's video, for the first time ever, I'm gonna reveal my rental portfolio. Now, this video ended up taking a while to figure out because I've never sat down and tried to figure out my cash flow. For me, I've just accumulated good deals as I've gone along. I haven't really had a cash flow goal or a strategy or anything. It's just been simply, hey, let's get as many good deals as possible. Let's flip them, let's wholesale them, let's keep some and keep it going. If I do that consistently, I'll get wealthy. But it was really a fun exercise to get all these figured out and get all the pictures and all the numbers for you guys. So let's just jump right into it because there are a lot of properties. So to give you the big picture view, I've got 18 long-term rental units. I've also got 8 short-term rental units. Those are Airbnbs. I've got another 2 short-term rental units that are under construction. And then if you want to count my personal residence, I have that as well. These are all my long-term holdings. They are not counting all my flips I've got going on. So if you add all those together, it's 29 units long-term. Now I'm going to tell you about each one of those properties as fast as I can because there are a few, obviously. We're going to go over the cash flow. We're going to go over how much they're worth, what kind of debt I have on them, all of that stuff. And if you're thinking I can't sit for 29 different properties, don't worry, a bunch of them are multifamily, so it's actually not that many properties themselves. Those would just be units. So let's get into the very first property that has been a very popular YouTube video of mine, and that is my 10-unit apartment. If you haven't seen that video of how I bought it for $16,000 and how it's been one of my best deals ever, definitely go check it out. I'll link to it below. Long story short, it is an awesome deal. So right now, that property is bringing in $7,000 a month with no mortgage. If you go and watch that YouTube video, you'll see how I negotiated no payments for 3 years. Once I do start making payments, which will be in the middle of next year, it'll be for $1,250. That'll go direct to the seller because we worked out a seller finance deal. On top of that, there will be about $600 in property taxes and insurance. So my monthly all-in's about $1,850 once I start making those payments. But for now, it's just $600, which is awesome. I currently have it on the market for $950,000 just to test the waters. And though I've gotten some offers, it hasn't been anything that I've wanted. But in all honesty, I'm probably just taking it off the market because I don't really need to sell it. As far as mortgages go, I owe $300,000 on it, and it's worth anywhere from $900,000 to $1 million. Just depends on who the buyer is, but we'll call it $950,000 as its value. Next up are 3 condos that I own, all in the same exact complex. I actually bought a package of 5 of them at once, and I sold 2 of them, so now I'm left with 3. So they rent for $2,700 a month, basically $900 per property, and I owe about $2,100 between the mortgage, the taxes, insurance, and HOA. As far as value goes, they're worth about $330,000 total, and I owe $224,000. The next property is super interesting because we bought it as a reverse mortgage. So I haven't talked a lot about subject to financing on this channel. If you want me to, I'll make a video about it. Long story short, we took over a reverse mortgage. So we actually don't even make payments on this property. And the best part is it's on a golf course. I just had a tenant move out of it, but the market rent is $2,000 a month. Our only obligation would be the taxes and HOA since there's not really a mortgage. And the taxes and HOA on it are $800 a month. Now here's the thing with a reverse mortgage. Instead of your principal balance going down every month because you're paying it down, it actually goes up every month. And so this property is underwater. I don't even know what's owed on it at this point. For me, it's purely cash flow. What's gonna happen is at some point the owner will die, the bank is gonna call the property due, and then we're gonna negotiate a short sale or something like that. But until then, I'm just gonna be making cash flow. It's a very complex deal. I can talk more about it in another video if you guys want. The next property is my parents' house. So I've talked about this before. I actually bought my parents a house that I pay for myself. So there's technically no rent being paid. I just pay it. But if I were to rent it out, the market rate is $2,500. It's worth about $400,000 right now, and I owe $260,000 on it. So obviously this house is negative cash flow, but part of the reason why I work so hard is being able to support them and many other people, which you're actually gonna hear about in these other properties. But it would cash flow pretty nice if I chose to rent it. Next up is a condo that my sister actually lives in. I know, my whole family lives in my houses that I own. Now, she actually pays rent because she works for me, but she's getting below market rent. She pays $1,000 for the condo. It would typically rent for about $1,300. Between mortgage and HOA, I'm in it for $750 a month. It's worth about $190,000 and I owe $135,000. It's a beautiful condo. We fully renovated it. She's living nice, trust me. Next up is another home that I've gifted to missionaries. So we actually did a YouTube video about this as well, where we surprised these missionaries from my church with this home. And so we're fully supporting everything with this house as well, so there's no rent. But if we were to rent it, it would be $1,800 a month. This was also a subject to deal, so I ended up taking over the seller's mortgage, and that's $1,400 a month. It's worth about $310,000 and I owe $227,000. Once again, in real life, it's negative cash flow, but that's not why I do it. For me, if I can use all the wealth I've built up and all the great deals we found to help people and give them a place to stay, that's far more valuable to me than just trying to get cash flow. It just goes back to figuring out, why are you doing what you're doing? What motivates you? And so that's one of the big things that motivates me. And as I accumulate more and more rentals and wealth, I plan to do more things like this. The last long-term rental I have is a luxury home that was a flip that ended up not working out. So this home rents for $5,000 and we currently have a hard money loan on it, but we're in the process of doing a BRRRR and refinancing it. Once we refinance it, the mortgage should be about $4,000. On top of that, it should be worth about $850,000 and the mortgage will be around $660,000 depending on what the bank gives us. The reason I say it should be worth this is because we're putting in a pool right now. The reason it didn't sell was we didn't put one in originally. It was a beautiful home, ultra luxury, but buyers at that price point would not pull the trigger without a pool. So I ended up taking it off the market, renting it out, telling the renter that we are gonna put a pool in. They have to allow the people to work, which they did. And now the pool is almost done and we're gonna refinance and get the new value. And so that sums it up for all the long-term rentals. If you were counting, that would be 18 units total. The majority of that is in the 10-unit apartment. Now let's go over the short-term rentals. I actually had a recent Airbnb video where I talked about how much we made in a month of Airbnb, so this will be pretty similar. Once again, I'm gonna try and get through this as fast as I can because I know this video is getting kind of long. So stay with me because we're gonna go through all the net cash flow, all the net worth at the end. Now with the Airbnbs, these are just estimates over the full year. It varies season to season. There are low points, there are high points, there are points where it's kind of neutral. So if you see an Airbnb video I make and it makes a lot more than what I'm telling you or a lot less, just understand that's why. So my first Airbnb rents for on average about $5,000 every single month. The mortgage is only $1,700. I'm gonna get into the cleaning fees and all that stuff after I go through all the properties. So trust me, I'm not making $5,000 minus $1,700 mortgage. I wish I was, but I'm not. Second property is actually a house and a guest house I own. Between the two, they get about $8,000 a month. It's worth about $450,000 and I owe $330,000. Now that one's obviously a really good deal because it's two properties. The next one up is very similar to the first. It gets about $5,000 in rent. The mortgage is $1,600. It's worth about $310,000 and I owe $205,000. As far as equity goes, that one was a little bit better deal. And that one was another flip that I ended up keeping. It wasn't getting what I wanted, so I kept it, and I'm really glad I did because it's turned out to be an amazing rental. The fourth cabin gets about $6,000 rent and has a $2,000 mortgage. It's worth $340,000 and has a $245,000 mortgage. This one is one of my favorites because you can literally walk to the slope. It's so cool. And that's why it gets a higher rent than the other ones that have a similar value. Next one up is my personal favorite and the biggest one we own up there. It gets $7,000 a month and has a $2,200 mortgage. On top of that, it's worth $450,000 and I owe $330,000. That one's cool because it's a nice single story, has 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, so we really like that one. So there's only 2 more, and these last 2 are already rented out and doing well, and I actually have private money on them still. I'm in the process of doing a BRRRR and refinancing. So this first one gets $5,000 a month. I anticipate after the refi, we'll have an $1,800 mortgage. It's already appraised at $330,000, and I would expect the bank to give us a loan for about $250,000. This is that Quonset hut that many people said wasn't gonna do good, and obviously it's doing great, so I'm very happy we bought it. The last one is our smallest one. It's not even 600 square feet, but it's an awesome property. It rents for $4,000 a month. It's worth $220,000 and will probably refi for $160,000. So if you add all those up, that's 8 rental units. I've got another 2 under construction, like I said, and then I've got my personal house. Let's add up all the cash flows and figure out the equity between all the properties. So obviously with the long-term rentals, people aren't paying rent in some of them are discounted. So it's kind of hard to figure out what cash flow should be because I'm choosing not to take rent. So let's just assume that I was renting them out at market rates. And also let's assume that my apartment is now paying that $1,250 a month, since that's gonna happen here soon. With those assumptions, my rental income from those long-term rentals should be about $22,000. That's if everyone's paying market value rent at those properties. All the mortgages, taxes, insurance on those properties would be $12,600. So if you took the income minus those expenses, it would come out to $9,400 in cash flow. Now I know everyone in the comments is gonna say, well, what about property management? What about maintenance? What about CapEx? Those are all valid points. If you wanted to really figure out my true cash flow, maybe take $4,000 off that total. I'm realistically cash flowing around $5,000 if you do it that way. Now let's look at the short-term rentals. The short-term rental income is about $40,000 on average. Assuming I refinance those last two properties, the mortgages should be around $12,700. Now, the big thing with Airbnb is all the other extra expenses. The cleaning, the utilities, the supplies, the taxes, all that stuff. Just for nice round numbers, I'm gonna say it's about $15,000 for everything on average. To be honest, it's a very educated guess. I'm sure it's not exactly that, but it's somewhere close. But with that number, you're looking at $12,300 a month in cash flow. So what does that bring us to? If you take the original $5,000 we called it at long-term rents, and then just call this $12,000, it's about $17,000 in cash flow that I'm making. And that would be pretty much net cash flow after maintenance, property managers, all that stuff. So if we're talking about being financially free, I could definitely live on $17,000 a month, no doubt about it. So $17,000 is the cash flow. Let's look at the equity. On the long-term rentals, the value of them was $3,030,000. The mortgages were $1,826,000. That leaves an equity position of $1,204,000. On the short-term rentals, we have a market value of $2,420,000. And we have mortgages of $1,765,000. That leaves an equity position of $655,000. So if you combine the two, you have $1,859,000 in equity. And this is just on my rentals. This isn't my personal residence. This isn't my flips, just rentals. And then you have $17,000 in monthly cash flow. Now, most people try and accumulate rentals for the cash flow. Everyone has that financially free number. I think most people would be fine living on $17,000 every month. For me, I've never really felt that way. I've never been one to say, man, I'm financially free. I hit my number. I've never gone after that. As I said in the beginning, rentals weren't something I was trying to accumulate. They're just deals that I felt like keeping as they've come along. And I'm not saying one way's right or another, but what I am saying is get really good at finding deals. If you can get good at finding deals, you can flip them, you can wholesale them, you can keep them as rentals, you can cash flow. You have so many different choices, it's crazy. And I guess now's a good plug for my online course. If you wanna learn to find deals and do exactly what I just showed you, definitely click the link below and go get my flipping and wholesaling course. You may not want to flip or wholesale, but it's gonna teach you how to buy and renovate these same deals that I'm telling you about. But anyways, that was a lot of work. That was a really long video. If you guys stayed with me till the end and you made it all the way through, comment below what your financial freedom number is. How much do you want to live on? What's your goal? What would you be happy living on? What would make you retire? I'm very curious, honestly. And if you got value out of this video, do me a favor, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe, follow me on all the socials. And until next time, take care.